What's up, guys? We got UFC Kansas City, Prates versus Garry, full card picks and betting breakdown. And I'm excited for this week's card. There are a lot of interesting matchups that I am excited to go ahead and break down for you guys. So let's go ahead and jump right into it with the first bout of the night being Chelsea Chandler versus Joselyne Edwards. And the pick for me is going to be Joselyne Edwards over Chelsea Chandler. She's coming off of the victory over Tamiris Vidal, where she submitted her. Then you have the two losses to Eileen Perez and Nora Cornell via decision, which those aren't bad losses. Both of those opponents are very talented and very skillful fighters. So no knock on Joselyne Edwards. Nora Cornell is a beast. So is Eileen Perez. But she does have the win over Pudilova, the win over Kim, and then the recent win over Tamiris Vidal, where she looked phenomenal in the striking and in the grappling before ultimately locking in that submission finish on Tamiris Vidal. I like Joselyne Edwards. She has the UFC experience. She's more well-rounded than Chelsea Chandler, in my opinion. She brings a very good striking threat along with a good grappling threat to follow it up if she has any trouble in the striking department, which I don't believe she will. She has quick hands. She has crafty combination. She also knows how to mix in her striking with her grappling and find those takedowns and maintain control of her opponents, which I see happening here against Chelsea Chandler. Chelsea Chandler hasn't beaten anybody good. She's coming off of the loss against Yana Santos, who is mediocre. Then you do have the win over Joselyne Nunez, which honestly was a good win at the time, but she did just get absolutely starched by Priscilla Cachoeira. And then you have the loss to Norma Dumont before that, where she was doing a 100-meter dash in the octagon, trying to just run for her life away from Norma Dumont. And I feel like Joselyne Edwards can implement a similar game plan in the sense of just really pressuring Chelsea Chandler and really just keeping a pace on her. Joselyne Edwards can outstrike her. She has the speed advantage. I think that she can enter the pocket, land some key takedowns in some timely situations, and get the better of a Chelsea Chandler. I really do. I think the UFC experience, along with the pressure that she brings to her opponents, is going to give her the edge here, and she's going to win via decision over a semi-talented Chelsea Chandler. Give me Joselyne Edwards to beat Chelsea Chandler. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Chelsea Chandler sitting at a plus 240, Joselyne Edwards sitting at a negative 280. I like Joselyne Edwards. I think that she is good anywhere this fight goes. She has good striking abilities and good grappling abilities, and I think she's going to use them to get the better of Chelsea Chandler. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 450. Under 2.5 sitting at a plus 350. I like the overs, and I think it's Joselyne Edwards walking away with the decision win over Chelsea Chandler. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight in Timmy Cuamba versus Roberto Romero, in which I was going back and forth on this one, and I am going with Roberto Romero. I think, honestly, out of both of these two, he showed me more room of improvement and also just in general just better fighting. I think that his striking is better. I think he's quicker, more accurate, and he brings a knockout power that I believe Timmy Cuamba doesn't really bring in this UFC kind of level. Roberto Romero is coming off of the loss to David Onama, but did drop him early and did look good in the striking department against somebody who is very skillful. And then you have the win over in Combat Global, where he submitted Takeda Ishida, who is 26-14, so you know he's not facing bumps. Roberto Romero is a very skillful striker and a very decent grappler as well. He's a very well-rounded fighter, to be completely honest, and I think he can beat Timmy Cuamba. I think Timmy Cuamba is going to look to grapple more than strike, because Roberto Romero throws these good overhand rights that I believe are going to land. And I also think that power edge has to go to Roberto Romero. So I think as he lands, his shots are going to affect a lot more than Timmy Cuamba's, and he's going to start getting hurt early. And I think Roberto Romero, as he puts on that pace and pressure and really starts to connect the dots with those strikes, he's going to start wearing and tearing on Timmy Cuamba, and that power is going to affect Timmy Cuamba. You're going to start seeing him start panic shooting, and I think Roberto Romero is going to end up either finishing him or it could go to decision. I mean, you got two talented prospects. I see a route where Roberto Romero could knock him out because he's got great striking with that knockout power, and I feel like there's definitely openings on the side of Timmy Cuamba when he gets a little bit overzealous with his striking. So I'm going to go decision, but I do think Roberto Romero is live to beat Timmy Cuamba. Cuamba looked awful in his last fight against Almeida, getting absolutely pieced and picked apart and dropped as well. And then in the fight before that, he did have a good fight up against Balagioki. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He actually did put on a good performance, but I think that was kind of a one-off performance. I don't think Timmy Cuamba is really UFC caliber. I think Roberto Romero shows more room for improvement, so I favor the side of Roberto Romero in terms of striking and in terms of grappling, being able to snub the takedowns and keeping this on the feet where I believe he has the advantage. So give me Roberto Romero to beat Timmy Cuamba. And let's look at the odds with Timmy Cuamba sitting at a negative 102, Roberto Romero sitting at negative 118. Like I said, this is a very close fight, nearly even in terms of odds. And I got to ride with the side of Roberto Romero. I think his hands are heavier. I think he sets up his shots a lot better. I think his combinations are a lot quicker and a lot smoother, so I favor the side of Roberto Romero, not only on the feet, but also in the grappling department. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 240, under 2.5 sitting at a plus 190. I like the over, but also I could see a world, like I said, where Roberto Romero does knock out Timmy Cuamba, but I think it's more than likely to go decision, so give me Roberto Romero via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card. In the ladies throwing it down in Jaqueline Amorim versus Polyana Viana. And this is another one where I was back and forth because we legitimately have striker versus grappler, in which I'm going with Jaqueline Amorim. I think her striking is good enough to keep up with Polyana Viana on the feet, not to mention to be able to set up her takedowns to allow her to get to the hips of Polyana Viana, maintain control of her, and get her down to that ground. I really feel as though Jaqueline Amorim is going to be able to find the hips. I really think so. I think Polyana Viana has good striking, don't get me wrong, but she has a suspect grappling game. I think Jaqueline Amorim could fully exploit that side of things, could take her down to the ground, could garner control time, could land some nice ground and pound, and could ultimately lock up a submission finish. I think that Polyana Viana lacks the ground game very, very, very much. So I believe Jaqueline Amorim, with her ability to strike, even though she kind of lacks in the striking department, I think she can strike with Polyana Viana enough to set up her takedowns to get Polyana Viana down to the ground and control her, advance positions, find that tricky submission, and land it. Give me Jaqueline Amorim via submission over Polyana Viana, who lacks in the grappling department. And let's go ahead and run it to the odds with Polyana Viana sitting at a plus 550 and Jaqueline Amorim sitting at a whopping negative 800. That is wild to me. Jaqueline Amorim doesn't have the best striking. I do believe she's going to be able to at least stick up with Polyana Viana for a good amount and be able to set up her takedowns with the striking. But again, she is not a very well-rounded fighter. Neither is Polyana Viana. So it's crazy. It's crazy to me to see Jaqueline Amorim at a negative 800. I think that is absolutely wild, and anybody throwing money on that is crazy because Amorim, yes, has the clear-cut grappling advantage, but in terms of striking, it's still very, very close. It's not like she has a clear-cut edge in striking and grappling. I think that negative 800 is wild, but I do think that Jaqueline Amorim is still going to find the victory over Polyana Viana, finding the hips, finding the takedown, locking up the submission, and getting the better of Polyana Viana. Over 2.5 sitting at a plus 200, under 2.5 sitting at a negative 260. I like the under 2.5, and I like Jaqueline Amorim to win via submission over Polyana Viana, who lacks in the grappling department. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Cameron Saaiman versus Malcolm Wellmaker. And this is a excellent matchup right here. excellent matchup. Cameron Saaiman coming off of the 2 losses to Peyton Talbot, where he got absolutely dusted and starched, and then the loss to Christian Rodriguez, which honestly looks good. Christian Rodriguez is a dog and is really, really skillful. But I gotta favor the side of Malcolm Wellmaker. He's coming off of the brutal knockout over Adam Bramold, where he made him sniff the canvas. If you haven't seen that fight, go watch that. He made him legitimately sniff the canvas, laid him out. Malcolm Wellmaker is a slick striker with stellar striking abilities. He has nasty knockout power. He has quick hands. He has clean combinations. He has clean counter striking abilities as well. Anywhere on the feet, he is phenomenal. He is somebody that you do not want to mess with on the feet. I believe that Malcolm Wellmaker is going to have the striking advantage. I think explosive advantage also favors the side of Malcolm. I think he's going to be able to enter and exit the pocket with ease. I believe grappling wise, he could snub the takedowns of Cameron Saaiman, keep this to where he has the advantage, and that's the striking department. I think Malcolm Wellmaker is going to be a little bit too slick and a little bit too good for somebody like Cameron Saaiman. And I'm not saying Cameron Saaiman is no bum, no slouch. He's a great prospect, don't get me wrong. I just believe that Cameron Saaiman leaves openings and leaves his chin open at times, especially here. If he starts to get frustrated with Malcolm, he's going to start being a little bit overzealous, leaving his chin up, which he tends to do. And I feel like Malcolm Wellmaker, with those counter-striking abilities, can catch him and put him out. Give me Malcolm Wellmaker via knockout over Cameron Saaiman. And let's look at the odds on this fight. With Cameron Saaiman sitting at a -105, Malcolm Wellmaker sitting at a -115, I like the side of Malcolm Wellmaker. I know this is a step up in competition to Cameron Saaiman, who has faced some really, really good UFC prospects in Christian Rodriguez. But again, I just feel like the slickness and the speed and power that Malcolm Wellmaker brings, he's going to find those shots and he's going to land. And I feel like he's going to catch Cameron Saaiman, who tends to leave his chin up in the air. Over 2.5 sitting at a -180. Under 2.5 sitting at a +150. I would stick away from the rounds. I would really stick away from the rounds. I think that Malcolm Wellmaker is live to knock him out. I could see it going the distance because you got two competitive strikers and two competitive fighters on both sides that are highly skilled. But I think Malcolm Wellmaker is going to find that chin, and I think he's going to knock out Cameron Saaiman. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Blackshear versus Alatengheili. And the pick for me is going to be Blackshear. I feel like there's no other way to go about this. I believe that Blackshear has the advantage wherever this fight goes. Striking-wise, grappling-wise. He is quicker with his hands. He has craftier combinations. He knows how to mix up his shots to the head and to the body a lot better than Alatengheili. Not to mention the reach advantage is on his side. And then grappling-wise, he has quicker transitions. He has trickier submissions. He knows how to advance positions. I like Blackshear. I'm telling you, he is going to beat the crap out of Alatengheili. I don't see a route where Alatengheili wins. I just don't see him winning. I really don't. Blackshear is coming off of the win over Cody Gibson where he Kimura'd him. Then you have the win via submission over Cody Stamann via rear naked choke. Then you have the two losses, one to Montel Jackson where he hit him with the perfect straight left to knock him clean out. And then you have the loss to Mario Batista, who beat Jose Aldo and who's about to verse Chito Vera. I mean, dude, Blackshear is a very, very skilled fighter. He's ran into some bricks in the road, but I think he's going to come back here. And I think he's going to deliver with a win over Alatengheili. Alatengheili's all right. Don't get me wrong. He's no bum, no slouch. He has striking skills. He has grappling skills. I just feel like Blackshear is better in every aspect. He's coming off of the win over Clayton Rodriguez. But I believe that Blackshear has faced way better opponents, has put down better opponents, and is going to get rid of Alatengheili here. And I believe he can do it whether it's knockout or whether it's submission. I believe Blackshear can finish it either way. Give me Blackshear to beat Alatengheili. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight with Blackshear sitting at a -400. Alatengheili sitting at a plus 330. I agree with the odds. I'm telling you, I believe Blackshear is better striking, better grappling wise, better everywhere over Alatengheili. So give me Blackshear over 2.5 sitting at a negative 150, under 2.5 sitting at a plus 120. I would stick away from the rounds on this one. I think Blackshear is live to lock up a submission on Alatengheili, but is also live for a knockout. I'm going to go Blackshear via submission. I think that he can get this to the ground. I think that he can out grapple and out transition Alatengheili and ultimately find that submission finish on Alatengheili. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Gutierrez versus John Castañeda. And I know a lot of you are going to be pissed on me on this one, but I am going with John Castañeda over Gutierrez. Yes, this is a step up in competition. Yes, I do believe he can get this done. He is coming off of the loss to Daniel Marcos, who is a phenomenal fighter. I mean, striking-wise, grappling-wise, he is a very talented and skillful fighter, so no knock on John Castañeda on this one. He did have some nice striking moments in that fight. And then you have the win over Kyung Ho Kang, where he beat him via decision. Then you have the win over Muin Gafurov, where he did drop Muin, actually, and did look phenomenal in the striking department. Then you have the loss to Daniel Santos, where Daniel Santos hit him with the perfect knee. I believe that John Castañeda is more well-rounded than Gutierrez. He has a good striking skill set. It brings that power. He has that nasty inside boxing. He has those quick hands. I like Castañeda's striking abilities, but I also like his grappling abilities. I feel like that's what he's going to need here to beat Gutierrez. I think he's going to take him down early. I think he's going to wear on Gutierrez, really just eat away at that energy in that gas tank, along with the power as well, and just really make him tired and wear and tear on him. I believe that's how John Castañeda wins. He can mix in some striking because his striking is really good as well. He brings a very good well-roundedness to his fight game. So in terms of striking, I believe that on that inside boxing range, John Castañeda is better. On the outside, I'll give it to Gutierrez. He has the cleaner shot straight down the middle, and he has that devastating knockout power. But I think John Castañeda is going to be able to enter and exit the pocket with ease, be able to find some of these takedowns, and land on the inside with those nasty hooks, with the nasty inside boxing. So I favor John Castañeda not only in the grappling department, but in the striking department. I feel like he's being slept on, and I feel like he's going to put on a good performance against a Gutierrez, who is no bum, no slouch, brings a very stellar striking skill set with some nasty knockout power and some good accurate shots, but ultimately kind of lacks in the grappling department. And I feel like John Castañeda can fully exploit that, find some success in taking him down, garnering control time, wearing on him, depleting that gas tank and that power of his, and really just getting the better of him, outstriking and picking him apart. Give me John Castañeda to beat Gutierrez. And let's go ahead and look at the odds on this fight, with John Castañeda sitting at a plus 120, Gutierrez sitting at a negative 140. I agree with the odds. I do think that Castañeda is being slept on, though. I think that he has a clear-cut grappling advantage. I think he's going to use that to the best of his ability and exploit the side of Gutierrez not really having the best ground game. As soon as he gets taken down, he struggles to get back up to his feet, and I believe that Castañeda is going to be able to maintain control of him, land some nice ground and pound, and could ultimately out-transition him and find a submission on him. I do believe he has a clear-cut grappling advantage. I think striking-wise, he can strike with Gutierrez, as long as he doesn't try and become a little bit too aggressive and start slugging it out. I think that Castañeda beats him on the feet and out grapples him, getting the better of Gutierrez. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 350, under 2.5 sitting at a plus 275. I like the over, but I also think that it could go under. I'm going to say John Castañeda gets the better of Gutierrez via decision, but is live for the submission, seeing as he has a clear-cut grappling advantage. So give me John Castañeda to win via decision over Gutierrez. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Evan Elder versus Zhang. I love this matchup. This is a great matchup between two phenomenal prospects in which I am going with Evan Elder. 110% I am going with Evan Elder, and I think he could get it done via knockout. I really do. I think he could end this in devastating fashion. He has a nasty, nasty power skill set. He has a power jab. He has a power overhand. He has a power uppercut. Every single one of his shots are disgustingly powerful. He is a powerhouse that pressures you, that likes to really be up in your face and just slug it out. And so is Gage. Gage is a similar type of fighter in that sense. He likes to be in your face. He likes to slug it out in the pocket. And I believe that Evan Elder in the pocket is a lot quicker, is a lot more explosive, and has a lot more power. So I favor Evan Elder, especially seeing as he is able to mix in his striking with his grappling. I think that he's going to get it done. I really do. You have the impressive win over Darius Flowers where he submitted him. Then you have the win over Jarno Valdez where he knocked him down multiple times in that fight. Literally first, second, and third round. He tagged him all 3 times in the start of the round. And then you have the loss to Nazim Sadikov. But don't get it twisted. If you go back and watch this fight, Evan Elder was actually up 2-0. He was winning this fight before he ended up getting a brutal cut above the eye, and the doctors ended up having to stop it. But if it wasn't for that, he would have ended up winning that fight. He was outstriking Nazim Sadikov and landing a lot more. So don't sleep on the striking abilities of Evan Elder. And then you have the loss to Preston Parsons, which, I'm not going to lie, he got absolutely dominated in that fight. But he has really improved throughout these fights. If you look at Sadikov, beat him. And Sadikov is a great, great fighter. Then you have the win over Valdez where he's knocking him down almost every single round or tagging him every single round. Then you have the win over Darius Flowers where he submitted him. Evan Elder is a phenomenal prospect that I believe is going to get the better of Gage Young. I really do. I think he has every aspect of this fight covered in terms of striking. He's quicker, he's more explosive. And I think that he's going to catch Gage Young in that pocket. If Gage Young tries to slug it out like he tends to do with his opponents, like he did in the fight against Eric Grant, or in his fight against Salakild, he's going to get tagged and he's going to get put to sleep. Give me Evan Elder via knockout over Gage Young. And let's look at the odds for this fight. With Evan Elder sitting at a negative 208, Gage Young sitting at a plus 178. I like the side of Evan Elder. I really do. I think he's going to handle business here. I think he's going to knock out Gage Young. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 140. Under 2.5 sitting at a plus 190. Give me the under 2.5. I think that Evan Elder is going to find the mark. He's going to use that power jab to set up his shots and land that overhand shot and put Gage Young out. Give me Evan Elder via knockout. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Matt Schnell versus Jimmy Flick. And the pick for me has got to be Matt Schnell. Although coming off of 3 losses, I know you guys are going to look at that and be like, oh, hell no, I'm not picking him. No. They are to Cody Durden, top 15. He got submitted. Then you have the loss to Steve Erceg, top 10, I believe. Got knocked out. Then you have the loss to Matthias Nicolas, who I believe isn't even in the UFC anymore, but still was one of the better fighters in the UFC for sure. Then you have the win over Suma Derji, who is a prospect. Matt Schnell beats unranked guys, but is also facing some of the best and brings a very good well-roundedness to his game versus Jimmy Flick, who has stellar grappling abilities, like absolutely phenomenal grappling abilities, but lacks solely in the striking department. He has no stand-up game. He gets knocked out. He doesn't move his head off the center line. He tends to be a little bit, what is the word? He tends to telegraph his takedowns, and he just tends to not bring enough of a striking threat to worry about anything other than the grappling side of things, which means he's not going to be able to really set up his takedowns to the best of his ability. I believe that Matt Schnell is going to be able to outstrike, outwork, and pick apart Jimmy Flick, keeping this on the feet, using that grappling ability of his to snub the takedowns, keep this on the feet like I said, keep this where he has that advantage, and outstrike and pick apart and eventually probably knock out Jimmy Flick. I know Matt Schnell is chinny as well. You got 2 chinny fighters on both sides that really are both mediocre, but I just believe Jimmy Flick is a lot more mediocre because he's a one-trick pony versus Matt Schnell, where he brings a good well-roundedness. He's just, a little bit chinny. But I believe that he's going to be able to have the striking speed and the explosive advantage over Jimmy Flick, and he's going to pick him apart and possibly find the knockout shot, but more than likely, probably just going to go to decision. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Jimmy Flick sitting at a plus 211, Matt Schnell sitting at a negative 251, over 1.5 sitting at a negative 140, under 1.5 sitting at a plus 110. Obviously, they don't see this fight going long. They see Matt Schnell catching him with the knockout, which I do believe he's live to knock out Jimmy Flick for sure. The head movement is off. He gets a little bit overzealous trying to go for these takedowns, leaves himself open for shots down the middle. Matt Schnell could catch him and piece him apart. I'm going to go Matt Schnell via decision, but I do think he's live for that knockout over Jimmy Flick. Give me Matt Schnell via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, and it only gets better from here. We got Ikram Aliskerov versus Andre Muniz for the main card opener. This is a banger fight in which I'm going Ikram Aliskerov to beat Andre Muniz. I mean, Ikram is a talented individual who ran into a brick wall in Rob Whittaker, but Rob Whittaker is one of the best of the best, and he's like, top 7 in the division? So that is no knock on Ikram Aliskerov. He took a huge leap in competition and ended up paying the price. Now they're backing him up, giving him somebody he can definitely handle, and I think he's going to be able to beat and handle a Andre Muniz. He has stellar striking skills. He has that knockout power, as we've seen against Phil Hawes and Warley Alves. The knockout, flying knee to ground and pound. Then you have the right cross knockout over Phil Hawes, which I feel like Ikram Aliskerov has some stellar striking skills. He's got those quick hands. He uses them really, really well on that inside with those nasty hooks, as well as being able to mix in his striking with his grappling. He not only has a good striking skill set, he has a good grappling skill set. Don't forget about that Sambo background of Aliskerov. I believe that he's going to use that Sambo background to snub the takedowns, keep this on the feet, where I believe he has the advantage over Andre Muniz, and he's going to outstrike and pick apart Andre Muniz, eventually finding the knockout shot. I think that Andre Muniz is kind of similar to Jimmy Flick. Like, he has a good striking skill set, but I just think that he more or less focuses mainly too much on the grappling side of things, leaving openings on the striking side of things, which I believe Aliskerov can fully exploit and take advantage and knock out Andre Muniz. I think Aliskerov is very good at closing that distance, very good at landing those overhands, and very good at setting up his shots. And I believe he's going to be able to do that here against a Andre Muniz, who is no bum, no slouch, has the win over Jung Young Park, where he out-grappled him. And then you have the losses to Paul Craig, where he got knocked out, and the loss to Brendan Allen, where he got submitted. Andre Muniz has stellar striking skill, or stellar grappling skills, but I believe that Ikram Aliskerov, with that Sambo base, can fare well in the grappling department, snubbing the takedowns, even landing some of his own, but mainly keeping this on the feet, where he has the complete and utter advantage over Andre Muniz, outstriking him, outworking him, and picking him apart. Give me Ikram Aliskerov to knock out Andre Muniz. Ikram sitting at a negative 500. Andre Muniz sitting at a plus 375. The odds are fairly wide, I'm not going to lie. But I do believe in Ikram's abilities. He is very, very skilled. He just got pushed a little bit too quickly and paid the price. But now they're setting him up with somebody I believe he can defeat and put on a devastating performance at that as well. Give me Ikram Aliskerov to knock out Andre Muniz. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 125. Under 1.5 sitting at a negative 105. Ikram to knock out Andre Muniz is the call. And let's go ahead and run it to the next banger in Randy Brown versus Nicolas Dalby as the next fight in this main card. Randy Brown is going to be my pick. I think that Randy Brown honestly won his last fight against Brian Battle, which I did pick Brian Battle to win, but I thought that Randy Brown honestly won. But I do believe that it could have gone either way, in which it went to Brian Battle. And Randy Brown is very, very talented. Don't take that Brian Battle as a huge loss. Don't. Because, I mean, Randy Brown put on a good performance. He had some key moments in that fight, landed some nice shots on the feet. And you also have the win over Zaleski before that, the win over Salikov where he knocked him out with a straight shot, and then the win over Turman before that. Randy Brown is a very slick striker with very good straight shots down the middle. He brings a very good mix as well, in the sense that he mixes it up to the head and to the body very, very well. He has those snappy high and low kicks. He also knows how to keep this on the feet in the sense of using his grappling to defensively stay upright and not let his opponents take him down. So I believe that Randy Brown, being very calm and calculated like he usually does, is going to be able to pick apart Nicolas Dalby. And as Dalby gets a little bit overzealous, which he tends to do because he likes to pressure brawl, you're going to see Randy Brown being very slick, being technical, letting Dalby kind of run the fight, if you will, and find that counter shot. I believe Randy Brown has some clean counter striking abilities, and I believe Nicolas Dalby, as he gets a little bit overzealous and tries to slug it out and brawl it out, you're going to see Randy Brown be a little bit more tactical, be a little bit more technical, and find those counter shots on the inside. And I believe he's going to be able to tag and piece and pick apart a Nicolas Dalby. Give me Randy Brown to beat Nicolas Dalby. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Randy Brown sitting at a -250, Nicolas Dalby sitting at a +210. I agree with the odds. I think that the technical tactician in Randy Brown is going to be slick, and he's going to be able to pick and piece apart a Nicolas Dalby, as Dalby's being a little bit too overzealous in trying to brawl and slug it out like he normally does in his fights. Over 2.5 sitting at a -260, under 2.5 sitting at a +200. I think this fight goes over, and I think it's going to be Randy Brown piecing and picking apart a Nicolas Dalby. And let's go ahead and run it to the next banger in this main card, in Michel Pereira versus Abus Magomedov, in which the pick for me is going to be Abus Magomedov. And there is a couple of reasons why. Michel Pereira, my problem with him is that he is a one-round fighter. He is a one-round fighter. He looks absolutely phenomenal in the first round, just throwing these bombs, landing some nice grappling takedowns, and all this really stellar-looking moves. But after that, he starts draining. He starts being a lot slower, a lot more sluggish on the feet, and he tends to get pieced and picked apart shortly after the first round. So I gotta favor the side of Abus Magomedov. I think with his pace and pressure, he can really piece and pick apart Michel Pereira, really just wearing on him. I think that's where Abus Magomedov is going to get the better of him. Just the cardio and just outworking a Michel Pereira. If he can survive the early onslaught of Michel Pereira, he is going to look phenomenal in the later rounds. As this fight goes on, I favor Abus Magomedov. So give me Abus to beat Michel Pereira. He's coming off of the win over Bruno Ferreira, where he submitted him and had some nice striking moments. And then the win over Warley Alves before that. Yes, he has the 2 losses, but look at who they are too. Caio Berhalio, top 5. Sean Strickland, top 5. I mean, bro, he's facing some of the best and losing to the best of the best. He is a phenomenal fighter, in which I think he's going to survive the early onslaught of Michel Pereira, and he's going to start draining Michel Pereira and just outworking, outdogging, and outstriking him. I believe that's how Abus Magomedov is going to win. Similar to the last fight for Michel Pereira, where he got outworked and outgrappled and outstruck by Anthony Hernandez shortly after losing that cardio in the first round. So give me Abus Magomedov to beat the one-round fighter in Michel Pereira. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Michel Pereira sitting at a -132. Abus sitting at a +112. Like I said, I like the underdog pick in Abus Magomedov. Over 1.5 sitting at a -170. Under 1.5 sitting at a +140. I like the I would stick away from the rounds. Honestly, I'm not even going to choose over or under. I would stick away from the rounds, and I would go with Abus Magomedov because I think after the first round onslaught of Michel Pieta, you're going to see a clear takeover from the side of Abus Magomedov with the striking and with the grappling due to the fact that Michel Pieta lacks cardio and starts looking a lot slower and sluggish after the first round. So give me Abus Magomedov to beat Michel Pieta. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this main card in Giga Chikadze versus David Onama. And this one is a banger matchup right here, in which I'm going with Giga Chikadze, surprisingly, to beat David Onama. Surprisingly, I'm going with Giga Chikadze. I think that he can outstrike David Onama. I think he can pick him apart. I think he can piece him apart. I think he can land some big shots on the feet, which I know is going to be a surprise to a lot of you. But, again, if you look at that last fight for David Onama, Roberto Romero landed a shot early and did affect him. Yes, he ended up overcoming and showing his recoverability. But again, that's not always going to happen, especially moving up in competition all the way up to a Giga Chikadze. I think that this isn't going to fare well for David Onama. I think he's going to run into a brick wall because Giga Chikadze is a very talented, very skillful fighter who is coming off of a loss to Arnold Allen, who is a hell of a lot better than a David Onama. And then the win over Alex Karakas before that, which I would say, you could maybe say similar to David Onama, but I'd still say Alex Karakas could be a little bit better. And then you have the loss to Calvin Kattar before that. Calvin Kattar's a phenomenal fighter. So there's no knock. Both of his losses are to great, competitive, highly skilled, and highly ranked fighters. And now you're handing him a huge step down in David Onama? I think Giga Chikadze is going to be at a striking advantage. I think he's going to be able to set up his shots a lot better. I think his combinations are a lot cleaner, a lot quicker, and a lot craftier. Not to mention he knows how to mix it up to the body and to the head a lot better. I favor the side of Giga Chikadze. I really do. I think Giga Chikadze, striking-wise, is going to be able to piece and pick apart David Onama and going to be able to find some nice overhands similar to the way that Roberto Romero was landing those overhands. So give me Giga Chikadze to beat David Onama. And let's go ahead and run it to the odds with Giga Chikadze sitting at a plus 147. David Onama sitting at a negative 167. Listen, I know David Onama is a great talented prospect with some nasty knockout power. But like we saw against Roberto Romero, he can get caught. He has been caught. And I believe with this step up in competition, I think Giga Chikadze can get it done. I really do. Sitting at a plus 147 as well. Sitting at plus money, I like Giga Chikadze. David Onama sitting at a negative 167. I like Giga Chikadze. I think he could definitely outstrike and outwork a David Onama. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 200. Under 2.5 sitting at a plus 160. Give me the over and give me Giga Chikadze to beat David Onama. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card, in which is the co-main event between Anthony Smith and Mingyang Zhang. And I mean, there's only one pick here. It's Mingyang Zhang by knockout. Anthony Smith has been looking absolutely atrocious as of lately. Yes, I know his last fight, you got to take that one with a grain of salt. He did have a passing of a coach or friend, so it did heavily affect him in that last fight, so take that one with a grain of salt. But either way, he was looking slow and sluggish against Roman Dolidze. He just hasn't really been looking the same. He's coming to the later end of his career, so I gotta favor the up-and-coming savage in Mingyang Zhang, who is just too quick, too explosive, and just way better in the striking department over Anthony Smith. Give me Mingyang Zhang to knock out Anthony Smith. I mean, Mingyang Zhang is coming off of a knockout over Ozzy Diaz, Ribeiro, and then Tokos over in Road to UFC. Mingyang Zhang is nobody to sleep on. He has deadly accurate shots with some nasty knockout power, and I believe he's going to use that here, and he's going to absolutely starch a Anthony Smith. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this co-main event. With Anthony Smith sitting at a plus 375, Mingyang Zhang sitting at a negative 500. I like Mingyang Zhang sitting at a negative 500. I agree with the odds. I think he's at a striking advantage. I think he's at a speed and explosive advantage. And I think he's going to be able to enter and exit the pocket and find some big shots on Anthony Smith and put him away. So give me Mingyang Zhang via knockout. Over 1.5 sitting at a plus 160. Under 1.5 sitting at a negative 200. Give me the under 1.5 sitting at a negative 200. And give me Mingyang Zhang to knock out Anthony Smith. And let's go ahead and run it to the main event of the evening. If you guys haven't, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share with an aunt, share with an uncle, share with your neighbor, share with your friend, share with anybody. But let's go ahead and get right back into this main event with Carlos Prates versus Ian Machado Garry. And this is a phenomenal matchup. I mean, this is a phenomenal matchup in which I was going back and forth, but I'm going with Ian Garry. I'm going with Ian Garry. I think that his ability to adapt gives him an edge here, because if you guys remember, in his fight against Song Kenan, he got tagged with a left hook, which I believe Carlos Prates could definitely land, but he was able to adapt after getting caught and was able to end up overcoming and beating a Song Kenan. And it showed me a lot about Ian Machado Garry. His ability to adapt and really just change in the middle of a fight is very, very impressive. Not to mention, he also is very well-rounded in his fight game, whereas Carlos Prates kind of lacks in the grappling department, but brings a very stellar striking skill set. So I am favoring the side of Ian Garry. I am. He's coming off of the loss against Shavkat Rakhmonov, where arguably he looked better than Shavkat, to be completely honest. But ultimately still lost. You have the win over Michael Venom Page, where he out-grappled him. And then you have the win over Neil, where he outstruck him. And then you have the win over Neil Magny, where he outgrappled and outstruck him. Ian Garry is very young and very talented with tremendous skill set in terms of striking and grappling. I like Ian Garry. In terms of striking, I think he can stand up with Carlos Prates. I think everybody's sleeping on Ian's striking. I think he could stand up with Prates. I think he can land some shots on the inside, even land some shots on the outside with his long reach. I like Garry. I think that he is going to use a little bit more grappling to kind of deplete the gas tank and the power of Carlos Prates early. So I do believe the striking side of things is going to come towards the end of the fight, whereas Carlos Prates is going to try and look to keep this mainly on the feet. He isn't going to try and take this down to the ground one bit. He's going to try and use his grappling to stick to his feet, to snub the takedowns, and maintain that striking advantage over Ian Garry, but I don't believe he's going to be able to do so. I think Ian Garry eventually is going to get him down and is going to garner control time and maybe advance positions. There's been 3 times Carlos Prates has had an opponent advance positions and find a submission on him. He lacks in the grappling game. So I gotta favor the side of Garry, especially with his ability to adapt and his well-roundedness with the striking and grappling. I think he's going to get the better of Carlos Prates. Prates is always live for that knockout shot, don't get me wrong. He can land that straight shot down the middle and knock out Garry, yes. But I believe that's all he has. So if I'm looking at it that way, Carlos Prates with only a striking or a puncher's chance, I gotta favor the side of Ian Machado Garry to be able to outstrike and outgrapple Carlos Prates and get the better of him throughout the 5 rounds. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Ian Garry sitting at a negative 127, Carlos Prates sitting at a plus 105. I agree with the odds. I think that Carlos Prates has a suspect grappling game, and I think Ian Garry can fully exploit that side of things. I do believe that Carlos Prates is at a striking advantage, but I do think that Ian Garry is still in the game in terms of striking. His striking is very, very good. He has a nasty jab. He knows how to use it. He knows how to maintain that distance. He knows how to set up his shots, and he knows how to use those crafty combinations up the middle. So I like Garry wherever this fight goes. Yes, there's always that knockout shot, but again, You're going to go for puncher's chance, or you're going to go for the more well-rounded fighter? Give me Ian Garry, the more well-rounded fighter. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 190. Under 2.5 sitting at a plus 160. I like the side of maybe an under 3.5, under 4.5. I think as this fight goes on, it's going to favor Garry. Carlos Prates, with that conditioning and the fact that he smokes a lot, is not a good sign, especially coming into a 5-rounder against somebody like Ian Garry, who knows how to put that pace and pressure on his opponents. So I'm going to favor the side of Ian Garry to beat Carlos Prates. And if you guys haven't, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.